When one looks at the situation as it stands at the moment, you talk to lots of people, and the eyes get a bit bigger and get a bit teary and get a bit nervy. It feels like 1993, sort of. Again, I'll go back to the point of some days it feels like pre-93, uncertainty. How do we inject some certainty? How do we say, you know what, yes, there's political noise. Yes, there are constituencies which must be looked after. Yes, there has to be a message of hope. Yes, people have to feel that there is a long-term future for everybody in South Africa. Otherwise, the consequences are like they potentially were in the early 90s.
Well, I think two things we have to take into account. On the one side, the government has outlined certain policy positions as far as jobs are concerned and as far as the growth path is concerned. Of course, those will take time. It's not something that will happen overnight, and it will have to kick in. But what is important from government side is to keep in mind that they should not undermine their own plans in that regard. And I think what comes to my impression is that we are sometimes too slow, too cautious about inviting foreign direct investment into the country. I mean, the Walmart case was a typical one as an example. I think we are too cautious. We are trying to cover for too many aspects of those considerations. And instead, many foreign direct investors are going elsewhere on the continent instead of looking at South Africa as the first option. So we should not undermine our own potential and our own plans and policies in that regard, and I think the government has to be very wary of this. The other thing is, of course, that next year is a big political year in South Africa. And up to the end of 2012, I guess, there will be a lot of uncertainty in the air. First of all, the celebrations for the ANC 2012, but then, of course, the major conference at the end of that year. And, it's very uncertain as to what is going to happen there. And there will be a lot of political noise going up in the build-up to that conference. So when you talk about 93, it's true that we are in a space where there's a lot of uncertainty. But at the same time, I think we have to, and all of us have to keep our minds cool. Yeah. What is to me a very promising indication is that Bobby Godsell and Michael Spicer and others are coming out.
Yeah,
finally. And doing the right thing. And I would like to think that Buza and others should do the same.
Absolutely.
And just emphasize again, our destiny doesn't lie with the politicians only. Our destiny lies with all of us.
Correct.
Civil society, organized business, everybody.
Quote, I'm just going to test your knowledge of history, either deep history or recent history. It is the absolute right of the state to supervise the formation of public opinion. Who would have said that?
It sounds like the government spokesperson.
Jimmy Money.
Yeah.
It's actually Joseph Goebbels.
Well, I was just going to say it could have been under the apartheid years too.
Yeah, absolutely. But that is Goebbels. It could have been any one of your former colleagues, or it could have been Jimmy Money. And that, to me, is one of the big issues that we're dealing with at the moment, is this desperation on the side of the state to control the flow of information, to cull criticism, to ensure that a media, which is not always, I was going to say lily white, but it's not always, it doesn't always hold itself up to scrutiny very well either. Let's be honest about that. But at the same time, the whole media bill, Kadar Asmal, the late Kadar Asmal, you dealt with him, didn't you, at CODESA, and he died recently, of course, and he was seen as one of those last bastions of principle and fighting for the rights of, fighting for the rights of democracy.
Can I just, before I get to Kadar, can I just say that I think this whole debate about the media bill and so forth, it's good that it's in the public space, and it's good that there's going to be this interaction, a more thorough, hopefully, interaction between the government and the editors that's coming up. Because why is it important to have an active media debate? It's part of the checks and balances that the democracy is relying on. And particularly in our case, I mean, that was one of the strengths that we have actually guaranteed in the Constitution. And we should keep to that. That's very important. As far as Kadar is concerned, I will always remember it as a major force in bringing about democracy in South Africa. For two reasons. He was extremely principled and value-based in his arguments. He would have never deviated from those positions. And the second, of course, is that he was an intellectual. He was a real intellectual that contributed to the political debate from an intellectual angle.
When you sat across the table from him at Cadessa, and of course, I mean, you saw he's a guy who would never deviate from his principles. That was pretty hard work in the early 1990s, wasn't it? Here you are representing the government of the day with the ANC sitting on the other side. Nobody really knows who these guys are. You're sitting and you're trying to feel each other out. And here's this little guy who likes to smoke a lot of cigarettes,
he liked his whiskey.
and liked whiskey, and just says, I don't think so. And suddenly you've got, hold on a second, there's a formidable opponent here.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is certainly so. You know, there are the good parts about that. I mean, Kadar was really, really effective in his debates and his arguments, and he kept us on our toes. But the second part, of course, was the fact that he often tried to teach us, you know, because he was coming from the teaching background. Very much before he came to back to South Africa at Trinity College. And so, you know, often we sat there and listened to Kadar, and I thought to myself, oh, you are just a lecturer. You know? But those were happy days in terms of my memory. And I will always treasure his value and the contribution he made to South Africa.
We desperately need more Kadar Asmals right now, don't we?
Right now, I think that's why I emphasize the fact that he contributed from an intellectual base. I think it's worthwhile to have those in the political space. You know, not everybody in politics can be an intellectual, but we certainly need them. We certainly need those that can keep us on our toes and other politicians on their toes.
Roelf, thanks very much.
Thank you, Bruce.